How are you all doing? How was your week?
Very good. I
Can you
am
say?
doing a little bit of a research on the part of all the lies that we tell ourselves. So we had story time with my two girls. So I had an 8-year-old brain on my right and a 10-year-old brain on my left. And I asked them both, oh, whenever you spill milk or whatever in the kitchen table, like, and I'm a bit rushed and I'm like, I'm like, do you go off and then give yourself a hard time? And the 10-year-old was like, yeah, mom, I always think, oh, I always do it. And then I always do this. And why do I always make mistakes? Da, 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 da. So she had her critic going. And the 8-year-old was like, nah, I just kind of think, oh, well, I won't do that again.
It's so cool, isn't it?
So cool.
Yeah.
Abby, we need to have a look at your badge.
Oh, yes, yes.
Death oppressed.
It's my favorite topic. If you do a 12-week program just on death, I'll be the first to sign up.
Fantastic. Definitely. I like it. 12-week program on death. I am in for that.
I, on the other hand, was going to stay in the bath and hide from it.
It is so cool. Yes. So yeah, it is. It's very cool. I love how strong our emotions are around it. And this might be the full total of the group for today, potentially, um, because it is something we like to avoid and hide from, which is kind of ironic, really. Mm. So, how are you at the minute? Does anybody want to share anything before we kind of kick off? Or you, how your week was, or how excited you are about doing the death one?
Yeah. It's the one I was most looking forward to.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it seems strange, but I am excited by it. Yeah, it has a lot of meaning for me. Yeah, so yeah, I'm aware of. I'm aware when you mentioned at the very beginning that this is what you were going to do. I thought, oh gosh, I'm really looking forward to that one. Yeah, yeah.
And what are your expectations that I probably won't meet?
Well, it's such a big one, isn't it? I mean, it's not just at the end of our lives. It's such a big one from the very beginning, and I suppose at different stages with it at different times. And I suppose at this stage of my life too, I'm also looking at it more as I get nearer to it. um, and yeah, so I suppose it's just the exploration. It's just really, I suppose, um, being with it myself and how I can be with it honestly and kindly and the excitement about death itself maybe and what may be beyond having lived for a long time not wanting to think about anything beyond or not having lived atheistically for a long time and now a sense of maybe another life and what that's about and what this life is about in relation to where we go to and yeah so it doesn't feel scary and I suppose it's something about in my work I've always enjoyed going alongside people who are dying. It sounds cliche but it has been very meaningful and with with family, with my parents, with my partner, it has been meaningful, very meaningful. Yeah. So yeah, it goes deeply. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. I mean, 100%. And definitely, for those of you that are completely freaking out, going, oh my dear Jesus, like I can't imagine having that experience. I think
Mm,
like you're dead. It's such a big, like
definitely.
we're donating an hour of our time to kind of open the door, a little creak for some people to
Mm,
maybe have a look to see, and I just think it's very interesting, like, and it's so overlaid with so much. I mean, it's just so much. I mean, I'll kind of tell you what my plan is for today, but also just be conscious that if grief is upon you, and if to always take care of yourself, so that if you want to drop off the call, that the recording is there, you can come or go. And like, as we can see, there's a lot fewer people on the call tonight than have been in the last weeks. So we obviously are practicing embodied yoga, so I am really encouraging you to be embodied in this process. And if you want to turn off the screen and just listen, if you want to, whatever way you want to interact with this material is up to you. And it really is just for those of you that are excited by this. It's only an hour, so I'm going to be dropping little bits here and there, and then kind of moving on, because we do only have an hour. And I mean, what would be lovely is to sort of spend half an hour talking and then have a chat. Then for the other half hour, we'll see how that kind of goes. And the other thing is to kind of notice our beliefs, what beliefs we have, because some of these beliefs are so embedded that we don't even know that they're beliefs, or assumptions might be another word to make, to use for it. That we have, because we have grown up in, I mean, this is where your constitution is really going to come in strongly. We have, despite maybe, like, I just think it's really interesting in my family. There's a lot of scientists, there's a lot of really strong atheist perspectives, and yet underlying that there is still some aspect of something, but it's not in through their head, because they're in their head very definitely atheists. But yet somehow other things have infiltrated. And for me, I've been through this whole spectrum of conscious and unconscious beliefs and an inquiry. So what I'm really inviting us to do is to be curious, to be gentle, and Jackie said that word kind, to be very kind, and to notice what arises, because it can be such a taboo subject for people that we can be overwhelmed by what arises because we want to suppress it. And my agenda is to have a little bit of playfulness about it, have a little bit of so just like if somebody was saying to me, I experience anger, I'm not going to say, well, I think the best thing to do with that is put in a box, lock the box, and don't look at it. I think that's the best way to deal with your anger. Similarly for death is 110% guaranteed. It's going to visit us all. So hiding in a box and not looking, to me, seems, it is definitely an approach. And in fact, I met my brother on the way down here, so I said, I can't wait for tonight, because I'm talking about something that really is not your thing. I'm talking about death. And he's going, yeah, why don't we just ignore that and just not look? Because and that's it. So he is very happy. That's his approach, and that's cool. 100%. There is nothing wrong with that. It's just when you tell me to not look at something, I'm like one of those kids that kind of has a little peek, So that's what I'm inviting you to do, is to have a little peek and to notice. My journey with it is, like, I remember back, I was about 20, and my friend's mum died. And she was my friend through guides. So we worked alongside each other. I'd meet her maybe twice a week. She's the one actually introduced me to training, and look at my life now. But her mum died, and I went to visit her with other people because I couldn't get my head around the idea that her mum died. And I remember meeting her up in her bedroom, and she was just in grief. And I was so uncomfortable. I had no idea what to say. I had no idea how to deal with it. I had no ability to interact with it at all. That what I ended up doing was withdrawing completely. So I ended up, not only did I withdraw from her, I withdrew from the guides, I withdrew from the training, I withdrew from something that was a massive big aspect of my life. Like it was bar college. This was the only other thing I did. And I withdrew from it all because I had no ability to be with her. I had no ability it was just too overwhelming for me. The whole thing was just like far too much. And so I kind of come from that place where then you start reading philosophy, and philosophy talk a lot about death. And if you get interested in meditation, it talks a lot about death. So then I went and bought the Tibetan Book of Dying. And it's a nice big book, and I looked at it, the outside of it, for I don't know how many years, and then I forgot, and then I bought another one because I forgot I had the original one. So I have about 3 versions of it now, and I have never opened any of them. And so this whole barrier for me to look, you know, it really it was difficult for me to kind of, I became curious, but I still couldn't open the door. And then eventually I came across this philosopher that I was doing work with him, and he has this program, it was the death one. It's this like huge big thick A4 book of training. It's a training program so I did this with him, and that was my first time to be willing to kind of look. And he sort of opens one of his, like, he's a medical doctor, and he was talking about when he was a junior doctor, so how it kind of arose for him. He was a junior doctor, and he was on a geriatric ward. He was working late at night because it was junior doctors. He was covering the night shift, and you know, and a lady went to cardiac arrest, and he revived her, and that's great. And the next morning, then, as the team meeting, the team meeting, and he's explaining what happened. You know, he's given his report of the night, and the other medics on the team are really quite impressed by him, that he was able to, like, that a junior doctor at his level was able to revive this woman. And so his consultant is sort of saying well done, or whatever it is, that you know, as a junior doctor, he was getting his getting great feedback. And he said whatever way the light came in through the window, it was like at dawn, and he was listening to his consultant saying how great his medical intervention was, and it suddenly dawned on him, what have I just done? Like, what? I was so unconsciously attached to preserving life that I use my medical skills, my technical skills, to preserve the life of this woman and to keep her alive, without for a second considering anything beyond that, because it was so blank, life or death, and life was better than death. But in actual fact, what he had managed to do was keep this woman alive, all right, but she was already on food. She was already not able to eat. She also already was double stress incontinent. She already was she had survived all of her living family. She had no registered next of kin, and she had been in this geriatric unit. They had nowhere to send her out to for something like 6 weeks. And he had now intervened, and now she was on air, whatever. Yeah, so she was now being kept alive by a machine. And it just struck him that he never considered the idea of just sitting with her, of talking to her, of supporting her have a gentle death, of supporting, you know, you want to get asked, looking at her stars or any, like, nothing. Do you know what I mean? He and we had become so materialistic in our approach. And I say materialistic, I don't mean like wanting loads of money. I mean in terms of what we can see and touch and feel and measure, that's what we value and count. And if we can't see, touch, feel it, and measure it, maybe it doesn't exist. And so here's the kind of question for me, and this is not in any way talking about euthanasia, and it is in no way talking about me making a decision for anybody else. It's more about this idea of us grasping for what we know, for fear of what we don't know, for no other reason other than fear. This is going to sound like a really simplistic view, but I remember my kid was 5th class. My oldest child was at 5th class, being petrified of him going to secondary school. Now, I had been to secondary school. I knew other people had been to secondary school. I could see the physical school. So this isn't nearly as scary as death. You know, we have more information about secondary school than death. And in fairness, you know, but nonetheless, I was petrified of the next transition that he was going to go through. Was he going to get bullied on the bus? Was he? All the unknown for me, and the lack of faith for me in survival of secondary school. And for me, it was about this, it was the fear. And so overlaying similar fear to death because we don't know. And the truth is we don't know. Like there's a whole load of books written about it. There's a whole load of gurus who will tell you that they know. And there's a whole lot of you know, and you may have really strong beliefs based on your experience that you have, which is fantastic. And their beliefs. In reality, we don't know. And the beliefs aren't good, bad, or indifferent. The beliefs, for me, are the beliefs useful or not? That's where I come down to, because to me, none of this stuff is provable. You know, so we've left the science side, and we're now, to me, it's really about what is useful, what is beneficial. Is this particular belief system that I have, is it useful? So, and here, I mean, I have so much respect is not the right word, but like for people who have a real strong faith in what happens after death, that they are held with that faith as they come to transition, is there's something very beautiful about that. But I'm looking from it from the point of view of not having any specific faith, any specific belief, but looking at your beliefs, whatever your beliefs are they serving you? Are they helpful? And how do they support you in your life? Because again, I'm looking really at life in this earth, in this body, and how we can be supported to do that better, how we can create heaven on earth. Fundamentally, this to me is all about heaven on earth. So kind of what I wanted to look at is a little thing like, first of all, is death final? I have no idea. Is death bad? I have no idea. Do we have opinions or beliefs about both of those? Like, and if we do, are they serving us? You know? So, like I say, I have gone through so many versions of what my opinion is, what my belief is about what happens after death. Like there's no, you know, and you will all have had similar, and they will continue to change as life progresses on. So for me, it's really, are they beneficial? Are they supporting me? Are they supporting me both in my current life and in my transition, as we will ultimately be transitioning? So like really how we think about death, and is it useful? The other question I have is it useful to completely ignore it, which is an approach that a lot of people take. And if we are completely ignoring it, why are we ignoring it? Is it like because of fear? In which case I'm going to challenge it. Is that useful? Yeah, why be afraid? Because being afraid is natural, but it is present. And we know fear of all these things constricts our body, restricts our body, stops us seeing. I mean, I've talked a lot about me going scuba diving, and my entire body. So I knew what in the summer, and that I was going in the November. So it was for 3 months, and my entire body constricted and became tense and tight. My breath changed. Every aspect of my body changed because of fear of the inevitable, which really wasn't that inevitable, because, you know, I could always just say no. So what is the impact of fear on us, and is it useful? And if fear isn't useful, how can we change that around? How can we change our story so that we have a different story that maybe is more useful, more enlightened, more helpful? To me, it's only about what is helpful. And then I want to have a quick look at this whole idea of the angel of death and how that can really support us in our life, in how we choose to live our life now. And the angel of death it's a Toltec phrase, and it's deadly. It's deadly. So we'll talk about the whole idea of using death, the knowledge that death exists and death is certain, to support us in our life. That's kind of my plan. And then the last sort of aspect of it then is a model, a potential for preparation for our death. It's a perspective. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but a perspective. How does that sound? Cool. Okay, so basically what I'm looking at, what I'm kind of suggesting is that our fear of the unknown, our fear of our unconscious fear often of the unknown, can get in our way of living. and it can become a block for seeing what's directly in front of us. So really our unconscious fear of the unknown, our conscious fear of the unknown, our materialistic perspective on life, which is potentially that what we see, touch, and feel is there. And if you want to be tested on how materialistic your perspective is, consider the death. Now, this is a bit of an extreme example, but consider the death of a loved one. Once you get past the grief side of it, what is your perspective? And the thing is, that perspective, there's no right or wrong in this. I'm always just saying, find what fits for you. So with your belief system, what fits for you and is of use. So if you want to sort of say people live in memory, then that's cool. If you want to say people live on in spirit, people are reincarnated, people that's it, atheist, that's it, that it's whatever is useful for you. And I mean, I find this interesting because my dad is a total atheist, and when my mom passed, I had all these kind of stories for me that supported me, but for him, it done is what supported him. So both of us in the same situation, dealing with not equivalent grief, because for him it's his wife, for me it's his mother. So they're deep grief, and two completely different stories supported us in different ways. So, like I said, I have no attachment to what the belief structure is. It is, does it support you and how it supports you, and sometimes a little bit of fiddling at the edges can really help make a stronger belief system that can really support you. And like I say, what that belief system is your own business. I hope that's understandable as opposed to wishy-washy, but and then it's about, for me, it's about knowing. So if we accept that we're dying, right now we're all dying. That's exactly what's happening right now. All of our loved ones are currently dying. If we accept that, then it's, for me, it's about how can we live? How can we live? How can we let our light be seen? And how can we support the knowledge of our death? How can we use the support of our knowledge of our death to live well and to prepare to transition to whatever that transition looks like? And sort of those transitions, like, I love the idea, say, of a breastfeeding baby. It's really appropriate to breastfeed a baby, and it's exactly what should happen at the exact time it happens. And then people will vary about when you should stop breastfeeding. So some people might think 6 months, some people might think a year, some people might choose not to breastfeed in the first place. Some people might go to 2 years, some people even go to 3 or 4 years. But there's nobody saying 15-year-olds should be breastfed. So no matter what way you look at it, that there is a transition, and after that transition, it changes. And this is the whole way through life. There's all of these transitions. So yeah, for me, it's about supporting and accepting that transition. And ignoring it, for me, is a little bit like, when you're a little kid, again, you don't remember this, but if you have kids, you'll know, when they were learning about object permanence. So, you put something down in front of them and then you covered it up and it disappeared and they didn't think it was there anymore. And then you can play peekaboo with them for like months and months and months, where you're just covering the yolk and they think it's gone, you take it off, peekaboo, cover. So for me, ignoring death is a bit like that. It's like pretending something that is right in front of you is not there. And equally, thinking of us only in this materialistic form, I think, is also a bit like playing peekaboo. How you see this person living on or continuing on, or yourself living on or continuing on, that is your business. And we will all exist in some shape or form after we pass. And so in terms of, I'm going to come back to this in a minute, in terms of how to work with people who have passed, if we're not clean with them. But that model, that picture can be anywhere you want, so it can either be within you, it can be in spirit form, like I say, whatever way you want, but just acknowledging that there is more, that we have an impact. We leave a footprint, so like in the sand, we leave a footprint. And then, yes, the sand changes and the ocean comes in and it all moves around. But nonetheless, our imprint was there. And so what kind of an imprint is it that we want to leave? And that for me is is fundamental to it all. Like, who are we? What is our purpose, our dharma here? And what kind of an imprint do we want to leave? Softly imprint, whatever calls us. And so that kind of brings me then into, like, if we look at the fact that death isn't good or bad, we look at the fact that death is guaranteed, we're looking at the fact that death may or may not be final, depending on how you want to language it for yourself. We look at the fact that what stops us looking at it is our fear. And our fear, it's kind of interesting because that fear, I think we should look at what that fear really is, because sometimes, so my ability to be with Carol was non-existent. I was not able to be with my friend. It just wasn't possible. Now, that wasn't good, bad, or indifferent. It just is. Event, consequence, event, consequence, event, consequence. And what was blocking me was my fear of the idea that my mother could die, my idea of the fact that anybody could die, my fear. Just recently, a friend of mine, his cousin died. It's not a cousin that he knows very well, but he was shocked to his core by this experience, and it really rattled him. And, when I met him, he was kind of, he was off, even though he had never met this person. But this was the first of the next tier of people that was to pass. So now it had started on he saw his siblings as being vulnerable, or him as being vulnerable, or that's how he interpreted what was going on. So the fear was for himself and his family, his close family, but it was sparked by an event that wasn't so close to him, if that makes sense. So our fear is often about ourselves, and our fear is often about our loved ones. And so if we can identify where our fear sits, then we can do something about it. And to do something about it, to be able to be free to live, to address the fear that we have for our own death and the fear for our loved one's death, is where we need to look at how we live our lives. And so that brings us smack bang into our angel of death. So the angel of death, this is a language, I'm taking this language from the Four Agreements, from the Toltec teaching from Don Miguel Ruiz. You'll see it across all the traditions. All of the traditions have something similar, but I'm going to use his language because this is who we're working with for this tool, is the angel of death. And he talks about having the angel of death on your shoulder all the time, the angel of death on your shoulder. And now this angel of death on your shoulder, it's not like meant to be creepy, but it is meant to be a little bit like Stark. Because here's the thing, right? You've often heard the idea, if you're upset about something, well, would you be if in 5 years' time you look back on it, would you be upset about it? Is there any point in getting upset about it? The angel of death is going to take it a little bit stronger. If you were going to be dead in 5 minutes or 5 days or 5, would you be getting your knickers in a twist about this? Like, is this how you want to be? Is this how you want to be on your last day on earth? Are these the people that you want to speak to? Here's one. First thing in the morning, and I'm going to speak for myself now, and I'm doing whatever I'm doing. And after the whole cup of tea incident 30 years ago, my husband is really good. He always comes and says goodbye, and I get a kiss and he says goodbye. And if I'm in the shower, well, he'll come if it's in the shower, but if there's some reason that he can't, if I'm on a call or something, then we'll do a phone call afterwards. And it's just literally saying goodbye. That's it. How present am I for that goodbye? Am I planning the next class that I'm at? Am I planning? Am I pissed off because there was toothpaste in the bath? It wasn't in the bath. Let's say in the bathroom, in the sink. Am I like, where am I? If I knew that this was me saying goodbye to my husband for the very last time, would I be present for that goodbye? This is the gift of the angel of death. It's not about being morbid, and it's definitely not about not living your life for fear that you might get run over by a bus. This is, how do I live my present life? If this was my last time to speak to this man, that something happens to either me or to him, is this how I want it to be? Can I be present right now? If I know, I don't know, I'm thinking about my friend and, oh yeah, I must call, must whatever. Will I make that call? Will I send a little text saying I love you? Will I take action now rather than that long finger? And that long finger we all know far too well. I have there's a family in my life, and this is unbelievably radical for me, because I have a family in my life who is going through a really hard time at the minute. Actually today we got better news, but up until today it sounded like one of them may die, and the other one is probably been put into long-term care. And then there's they're the parents, and then the family are, we're supporting the family and whatever. So like it's pretty serious. And I had no regrets. I've heard about this happening for other people where they can say I am complete. But should the worst have happened to this lady and I wouldn't see her again, I was complete. And I was complete because we had spent the summer together. I had gone over at Christmas. We'd spent Christmas together. I had been putting an effort into a relationship that I have been taking for granted all my life. All my life I was taking for granted. And in the last 18 months or so, I put myself consciously into that relationship. And so and even our language, I mean, imagine this language. I was about to say, should the worst happen? Like, there's my language, should the worst happen. Should the person pass to who knows what, but should they pass, I felt complete and clean. And should they live for another 10 years, then I will hopefully for every day for the next 10 years also feel complete and clean. That is the gift. The gift of the angel of death is about being present in your life, and being complete every time. Like, it's funny. This has helped me. I used to feel guilty about this. So, the kids, and they'd be rushing off to school or whatever. I'm make the lunch, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I'd be in my head. And then I go, shit, the angel of death. What if something happens to the kids? And for a little while, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm thinking what would happen to my kids, and a whole drama. But once I got past the drama stage, then it was like a wake up. Say goodbye to them nicely. Be kind, be present when they're telling you whatever story they're telling you for the 10th time, and you're like, just please let me go to sleep. Give me, like, this is coming ahead for you that have little kids. You have to wait till they become teenagers, when you need, what do they call, matchsticks in your eyes to pretend to be open while they're telling you at 12 o'clock at night, because you're like, you've been asleep since 10 o'clock, but they're only boo because they're teenagers. And you're like, that's really interesting. I'm so glad that your friend. See if we can be present for these moments, that to me is the gift of the angel of death. That's it, really. The angel of death. It is so cool. It's cool because it's supporting us be present for ourselves and for another, so that we are choosing to do with our lives what makes sense for us, that we can get to live our Dharma now, that we're not doing stuff that is breaking our soul or breaking our heart now. And what I would suggest is changing your story. If you do feel like what you're doing now is breaking your soul or breaking your heart, change the story. I'm not saying that you use the angel of death to give up your job and become homeless and just go out and do whatever. I'm saying use the angel of death to have joy, bring joy to your life. You can be joyful. We talked about this before last week about the jobs. We can be joyful doing a job that we hate, knowing that we can change it from hating to have a different story about it, and that we can then use that job to support us to live the life we want to live. So being really mindful about how we make up the stories in our lives, and all the stuff that we were talking about the last few weeks. This is makes it urgent. This is not to be putting off to tomorrow what you can do today. Yeah. The other thing that can die, when we're in the subject of death and the angel of death, is we can let go of a lot of the nonsense, a lot of our identity. So the question really is, when we have our angel of death, the question is, who are we and what is important? So what is important is maybe being present for another. It's making that phone call. It's sending that little card. It's whatever it is that lights us up, which is typically connection. It's typically our light connecting with another light. It's typically that's where what lights us up. And if we are like a research head, then doing that research, letting it light up, and then being in connection. But it's coming to the question of who we are. Who am I? And like, that's a massive question. Who am I? It's a massive question because we get stuck in labels, in identity, in personality, in story, in drama, in da. So here the angel of death can really support us, because we can kill off some of those labels. And here we have to be kind of conscious of, why do we have the labels? Because we have the labels because they have supported us and helped us. They've kept us alive. They've kept us alive at a level, and they've supported us at a level, because otherwise we wouldn't have used them. But here now the question is, can we become free of them so we can actually be free? So here's a really simple idea. Like, I'm dyslexic. And so that became a label that was very helpful to me because I can use it. I'm dyslexic. And I remember at one stage I was asked to do a handwriting sample for a job, blah, blah, blah. So I did a handwrite, but I must have spent 2 days, two maybe 2 weeks, bitching and moan. Did they not know I'm dyslexic? And blah, diddy, blah, diddy, blah. And they're asking me, da. All I had to do was do the bleeding handwriting sample and move on with my life. You know, they weren't going to pick me anyway, because I'd have probably spelt something wrong anyway. My writing is all like this anyway. Like, let's move on. But my attachment to the label, to one of the labels that I have, being a mother, very attached to that one, being a wife, being a homeowner, being a yoga teacher, being a trainer, being dyslexic, as I'm attached to these, it removes some of the freedom. So it gives me protection, because now I have an excuse for my bad spelling. But it also gives me this layer of protection. But if I remove that, it's not like I'm going to have magically great spelling, or it's not like I'm suddenly not going to be a wife, or it's not like I'm suddenly not going to be a mother. But if I can break my attachment to these labels, let these labels die, the identity die, then I can be free to just be light, to just be me, to just be whatever that means. And the identities that I'm suggesting that we can help use, let the angel of death support us kill off, the identities, they protect us. They may also be how we have been asking for love, how we've been asking for feedback. It may be how we've been asking for attention. It may be how we've been in that like dependency role. So there has always been a benefit to us having these identities. So sometimes we need to know what that is before we kind of kill it off, because if we were using that to get attention, to get love, to get respect, because whatever, my singing, my desperate singing, you know, I can tell you that story about my desperate singing, and I can hook you all, and you can give me sympathy and give me attention and give me like, oh, Laura, you're great, it's amazing. So you can give me, I can use it to get that. So if I decide to allow that identity die off, to kill off that identity, I need to give myself that, because I still need the love. I still need the feedback. I still need to be seen. I was using the identity to get what I needed, which is love, to be seen. But now I need to do that for myself, and not be manipulating the situation so that I get it from somebody else. And this is even harder. You think that dealing with preparing for your own death is hard. This is even harder. Killing off some of these crazy personality things that we have is it's challenging. It's challenging. Does that make sense? Am I kind of keeping you going? Yeah. Great. And so that's kind of the pain of growing up. And there's a beautiful story in the it's in the love one. It's in the love one. The whatever the Toltec book is on love, his love, mastery of love, I think is the story. And it's a beautiful story about the magic kitchen. So the idea is you have a magical kitchen. And in this magical kitchen, you can just manifest anything that you want. So you want pizza, you get pizza. You want pasta, you get pasta. You want chicken, you get chicken. You want, I don't know, prawn cocktails, you get prawn cocktails. Like, it's a magic kitchen. And not only is it like, if you want, it's beautiful food. So you have it all there in your kitchen. But then one day you fall on your head, or you fall asleep, or whatever language you want to use, you forget that you've got a magic kitchen. And so next thing, you're on the phone to the local Domino's saying, hey, will you bring me over a pizza? And Mr. Domino's arrives on your door, knocks on your door and says, hey, you want a pizza? And we're going, yes, please. And he said, well, I want some money for it. And you're going, well, okay, no problem. How much money do you want for it? Oh, I want 20 euro. Here you go, 20 euro. And then you go, no, actually, I want more than 20 euro. But now you're starving, and you're going, well, okay, I'll pay you more than 20 euro. The pizza is soggy, but you're like starving. So you're going, yeah, I'll give you more than 20 euro. And he goes, right, well, I want 50 euro. And you're like, 50 euro for a soggy pizza, but you're starving. So you say, okay, I'll give you 50 euro. And then he's like, yeah, here's a sucker. Never mind the 50 euro. I want 700 euro. And you're like, 700 euro? But I'm so hungry and I'm going to die if I don't get fed. And the only show in town is this soggy Domino's pizza in front of me. And eventually you're so desperate, maybe you give him the 700 euro and you get the soggy Domino's pizza, and you walk into your magical kitchen and you eat the soggy Domino's pizza, and you still don't even see you're in a magical kitchen. When we forget that we have it ourselves, we go looking for it externally. And the more we forget and the more we want it, the more we allow people charge whatever they want. You sell your soul for this. You sell who you are to get whatever it is that you think you need, their love, their attention, the new dress, whatever it is. No, forgetting that fundamentally you're sitting in a magic kitchen. You have it all there already. And so this business of waking up to see what is already present, already in your heart, everything you need is already there, will support you kill off some of the crazy laws. We call them laws. We talked about your constitution, mad personalities, identities. I'm bringing a new label today, calling them identities, all sort of different ways of looking at the same thing. So the ball that we looked at, they're just different ways of looking at the same thing. And so getting over our fear that if we don't get the soggy pizza, what will happen, we're going to all die, means that we can look and see what's already there. And then we don't need to be so worried about the transition, because I have no idea what happens when we die. So I'm not going to tell you I know what happens when we die. However, I suspect there's a transition. I suspect it'll be all right. I'm going to give you a little woohoo kind of thing. Take or leave this as you want, right? But you've heard the thing, you're born alone and you die alone. Everybody's heard that? Okay. Show me someone who was born alone. You had a bloody mother. Ignoring the fact that there was twins, you could have been twins, or there was a doctor, or there was a hospital, or you were at the side of the road. Regardless, there was a mother. So we were not born alone. So why do we assume we're born alone and we die alone? You can take that in any direction you want. That's for the 12-week course, what that possibly could mean. But just to challenge some of these things that we talk about we're fear and the unknown, or fear of the unknown, or the exact opposite, which is where people tell you that they know something about it and they tell you what the facts are, well, it's like this. You don't need to be afraid because you're going to be reincarnated and you're going to come back as a stone on the beach and you'll be fine. Or you know, whatever the belief is, when they're so solidly strong in that, again, where's the wonder? And if you are very solidly strong in that, please completely just ignore what I just said and enjoy your next life as a stone on a nice beach. So having looked at our fear of death, how our fear of death keeps us trapped, having looked hopefully at how we can play, like I say, we're just cracking the door to not be afraid to look and to see what comes for you. Then you can be present for yourself, for your life, for your loved one, for your life, for their life, and let go of some of the stuff that gets in the way of us being present. You know, so allowing that angel of death, allow us be present and allow it kill off some of the mad, crazy thoughts, personalities, perspectives that we have that block us from being present. And so then there's the very practical thing about how do we actually prepare then for our death. So I think the biggest thing is how we live, which we've talked about. And then the other thing about how we prepare for our death, here, again, I'm going to veer into belief and you can take a bit and leave a bit. But meditation is considered to be, by all of the philosophers, the best preparation for death. And yeah, I'm going to stop now. But the idea being that ability to be able to just sit with what's present. Because we have no idea what is present. We have no idea what is coming. We have no idea. But being able to just be present, sit with it, and allow what arises, arise, and allow the transitions happen. So in meditation, the transitions are from crazy mind to other crazy mind to whatever other crazy mind happens, just allowing it all happen. And meditation will definitely support you be present in your life as well as in your transition. And then I love the idea of like, and I would talk to people who have been around people who have transitioned and how to create the most peaceful possible transition. Because for me, it's a bit like transitions in our yoga. You know, you can go do all your very fast yoga and just bang through the transitions and not notice that you've got stuck in them and force your way through them. Or you can find ease and flow. Go a little bit slower, take a breath, and there, a bit like childbirth, I suspect, now I don't have any memory of dying, so I really don't know what I'm talking about here. So please take this with a pinch of salt. But I suspect having an agenda about how it is you're going to die is about as useful as having an agenda about how it is you're going to give birth. And anybody who has given birth will know that they're only one of like a lot of things that go on, you know. So, but the intention though, having the intention is different. So having that intention of presence, you know, of getting to a place where you're not afraid. There will obviously always be a fear aspect, 100%. But getting, and this is where to me the meditation comes in, and the talking to people and the being around people who have creating this peace. That there is nothing sure than a transition is going to happen. That's a certainty. So fighting it is about as useful as like fighting the ocean coming in, you know. So what is it like to be with that, to be with the unknown, to be with the inquiry, to be with wonder? And how is it to find peace? And so at every stage that we go through, everything that we go through, whether it's part of aging, whether it's part of the death of a person near us, whether it's injury of a person near us, whatever, all these different little opportunities that we have through life to practice being present with what is present, not looking to stop the emotion and being present with it, but not allowing ourselves to be overwhelmed by it or being fearful of it. The fear of the emotion gets in the way of the flow of the emotion, because emotion is energy in motion. It comes and it goes and it changes, and there's nothing that we can, bar death, change the next most certain thing that's going to happen. So hence where meditation comes in, to be free, and then to be being willing to even notice, notice what comes up for us. Because like I say, when I was speaking about my friend, it was his death and the death of his siblings that he was worried about. But noticing even, how do we get hooked in the drama of death? I was in a situation one stage where a young man died. He was in his 30s or so. And suddenly all this drama about him. And I remember my teacher, and I remember thinking, you cruel bastard. But he sort of said, well, now hold on a second here, lads. What is all this like whirling stuff about? Did you sleep beside him? Is your life affected by his passing? The person who used to sleep beside him, who's now got a blank in the bed, the person who worked beside him, the person who, there are people who 1,000,000% have shared his life in this way and is massively impacted. But when you get out to where we were, that's just drama. And why are we getting hooked in this drama? And how is getting hooked in this drama impacting us, our ability to be present for ourselves and our own fear, which is fundamentally what it was about, or being present for the loved ones who are grieving. I think we do death really well in Ireland, actually. I love the whole 3-day wake. I think there's something very spiritual about, or very nurturing about, spending 3 days to talk about and over and with and having waking at home. I think I think we do that really, really well. And being there for the family. But then the question is, how can we be there for ourselves? How can we be there for the family? But then how can we have been clean so that we are happy? You're never going to be happy going to a funeral. I don't mean happy going to a funeral, but feel complete. We go to the funeral for the family, and maybe for their spirit and for ourselves. But if you want to be complete with the person, then the aim is to be complete well in advance of a funeral, which comes back to, dare I say it, the angel of death, so that in each interaction, we are complete at the end of each interaction, should that be our last interaction with them. The one other thing, though, that I think is really important to say when we're talking about death and talking about people passing is when we're not complete with them. So we may have people in our lives that we do not feel complete with, in whatever way that is. And for that, I'm going to say, where is it that you see them? Where are they? So for those of you that were on retreat with me in the past, you'll know when I say, where do you see me? So everybody point, where do you see me? Yeah. So if that's where you see me, and when I'm alive, should I pass, where do you see me? I'm still here. So whatever, added onto whatever your spiritual beliefs are, it is for me, I think, very possible for you to complete, to clean up, to do what you need to do with that person, even when they're not in physical form anymore in their body. Because most of the interaction was happening in your head anyway. So you can write them a letter, you can talk to them, you can do whatever it is that you need to do. Because again, you're going to make this up based on your belief system. But either if you're atheist, then they're no longer here in this form. And if they're in spirit form, in any shape or form of spirit form, then they know that, you're feeling guilty or feeling angry or feeling whatever you're feeling. So they already have the information. And so now it's for you to process it so that you can get to that place that they already are at. And so you can do that through writing your letter, through talking, through whatever, because they still are here for you. So you can still, in my opinion, it's only an opinion, you can still get complete with anybody that you feel like you haven't managed to get complete with while they were still in body. It's a perspective. And as with all of this, the question is it useful or is it not? Because remember, nothing that I say is true. Accept that you're going to die. That I can put money on that one. Yeah. So, to end in like a happy, for me, it is so beautiful because there is nothing surer than we're going to die. So we're going to die, and everybody that we love is going to die. It's very hard to hear that. And it doesn't change the fact that, like, there was a Buddhist teacher, you know, from the Buddhists, they were talking about the fact that we're all impermanent, and it's all, you know, so they had this belief, and so the teacher's son passed, and the apprentice said to the teacher, well, why in God's name are you crying? Not in God's name, but in Buddha's name. Why are you crying? Because, you know, you've taught us all this stuff, impermanence and all the rest of it. So why are you crying? And he said, well, it's true. That is my belief, and it still hurts. You know, so in no way, like, to me, grief is beautiful because it's a sign of love, a sign of honor, a sign of respect, a sign of connection, you know. So in no way is this about not having grief, either for if you get diagnosis and you know it's you, if your friend or family either get a diagnosis and you're preparing for death, or have died or are dying. In no way is grief is really appropriate, you know, and it's a fantastic sign of love. And my wish for everybody is that while people are grieving, that they also know it's okay, so that we can hold both things at the same time. The absolute sadness, 100%, the grieving, 100%. And also knowing that this is okay, knowing that in order to have this amount of sadness, there must have been joy, and is still joy and love, and that both can exist. And that it doesn't have to be suppressed, it doesn't have to be hidden, it is as it is, and it's exactly as it should be. And that both of these things exist. And so it's okay, not in the beginning, you won't be laughing, but in time, whenever you first laugh, having someone having passed, that's okay, because they want you to live. And that we live in this life as clearly and as cleanly and as well as we can. And that by using the idea of death, we're doing two things. One is that we're living fully. Living as fully and as presently as we can. And the second thing, I do think we should be preparing for the biggest transition we know. Who knows what other transitions there are, but you know, and for me, that's about meditation, so that we can be present. And it's the same as I'm talking about in the grief, knowing there's also wellness, that in our meditation. And for me, that was where the meditation, when I first realized when my mom passed, it's when I first realized my meditation was working, because I could be fully 100% in grief, like walking around the kitchen, bawling my eyes out for weeks on end, and feel held, know that there was something, somehow it was okay. And how I made that story up, whether it was her, the earth, spirit, whatever, but that there was something that was okay. So I was being held in my grief. And so that is my wish for us all, that we use our practices to allow ourselves be in fear, in uncertainty, and to know it's okay. And have some fun with it. And not be afraid. Oh, not be afraid, as if that was easy. It was that easy. But you know, the more we can talk about it, the more we can the more we can change the taboo, the more we can change the conversation, then the more people we have to talk about it in an enlightened way.
Can I say something, Laura?
Please do.
Thank you. I do not afraid to die. And I'm saying this with 100% behind me. And my husband said to me, you don't afraid because you are a happy person. And it wasn't like that for me. And now when I was looking forward, a bit like Herbie, to what you are going to say tonight, because I had to experience this myself, and it wasn't easy. And my mom, when she was dying 5 years ago, I was in Poland with her for a month in the hospital every day, 8 to 80, 12 hours per day. And when I was there, I was saying, why in the name of God I have to be there? Why do I have to look at her, how she's dying and how difficult it is for her to die, and I have to watch it? And then something has changed. I met a lady. She was a person sick in that hospital. She was elderly, I would say, her 90s, you could say. And she was with me day and day and explaining how it is about dying, how is this going to be. And I got a bit obsessed then with the death. I started to read. She was explaining a lot, and I started to read. And I said to myself at some stage, this is my time to be with my mom. This is now to say goodbye in a proper way, to be complete, and to experience what I'm experiencing. And I did it. And mom died. Dad was with her. I wasn't. My mom didn't want me to be there. And now, looking from perspective, 5 years later, it took me about a year to grieve afterwards. This was the happiest moment in my life. And I know it's going to sound very strange for somebody who maybe didn't experience this, but I was happy. I was complete, as you said. I couldn't name it. Now I can name it. I made peace with it. And it was beautiful. And there was a moment when I wanted her to die simply because I knew it. She is in such amount of pain that it is better for her to die, to not experience this anymore. And she actually wanted to die herself. And my father believes in God very much. I do believe in God, but my father really, really, really believes. And until now, he's 87. He was with us over Christmas. He afraid to die. And that's why what you said, that believing in God or not believing in God or any other God, whatever you name it, it could be sun or whatever you want to say, it doesn't mean that the death is worse or better in that circumstances. I just feel that we just have to make that peace in our own mind, in our own life, maybe experience, maybe don't experience and believe. The death will happen. And since that, this is 5 years now, I feel differently completely about death. And as my husband said, because I'm happy, I do not afraid to die. And as you said about the bloody teenagers, and I have one at home, as we know, talking to me, and I would give her a hug and go to her, and then she will wake up exactly the same as you said, Laura, at 12 at midnight, because she wants to ask me a question. I even go to her and tell her, I want to ask you the question, ask me that question, come and wake me up, because if it will be the last minute or the last 5 minutes of my life, I want to be sure that I did it right. Thank you for listening.
As always, thank you, Dorota. I have been very consciously careful to not overlay any beliefs, if at all possible. At least that was my intention. And if I have managed to get you curious, there is so much to read and to find and to listen to people who have ideas about what happens, how it happens. There's a whole lot of really beautiful, beautiful books about passing and about creating lovely. For me, it's about finding what works for you, what fits with your belief system, and being curious, because Who knows? Like, it could be that you walk in front of a bus and that's it. There's no choice in the matter. And it could be that, so looking at living wills, for example, again, me and my husband, two different versions. I'm like, let's get the living will done. And he's like, well, seriously, do we really need it? I'm going, yes, dear, you really do. So the more just being curious. And once you're open to it, you'll find lots and lots of different material, lots of different perspectives, and finding the one that sits for you. And then I would say not being attached to it, so that you can change your mind when you hear or read something else. Go, that's really nice. I like that idea. Let me kind of work this way, or let me work that way. But opening, if I have just opened the crack of the door for you to be an active participant in your preparation for your death, and supporting you with the resources to live well and die well, to live presently with those around you and be present and in love with those around you, and therefore being present and not afraid to let them pass when their time comes, and supporting them pass in a way that is respectful, dignity, gentle, kind, soft. And none of this that none of this is possible, but at least having some information, having some opinion, not being afraid. For me, it's about not being afraid. Very cheery way to but that, to me, the gifts of the Four Agreements, given that we are sort of finishing up the Four Agreements whole sort of sequence, is about life, and part of life is transition. Morning to day, winter to summer, youth, childhood to youth, to middle age, to hopefully older age, and hopefully, really hopefully, a stage where maybe potentially you're outliving a lot of your family members, a lot of your friends, so at that point, really coming to peace with it is important. So you're just getting a head start. Cool. Any questions or any final thoughts or anything that you'd really like to say?
Yeah. I loved that, Laura. Thank you. I have found it really enriching and hopeful. There's yeah, and it does seem strange, but there is such joy in it. Yeah, in living and accepting death. Just it helps me to live more fully, I think, and so thank you. There's a huge amount in that. I would really resonated with letting go the identities and labels, and how strong some of them have been, stories, things like being bullied about being left-handed and being a twin, these ones that come in so quickly into something, and what they mean. So how it is at this stage to let them down. They're actually, and things like that are kind of begin to get tiresome at this stage too, sort of where don't want them around me, don't need them. So there's a huge amount, so thank you. That it is a real gift, and I appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you so much. Okay. Well, thank you to all of you who have hung out with me for the last 4 weeks plus one. Hopefully the whole series has been useful, and if there is other stuff that you're interested in, I have this kind of idea of like little 20-minute kind of thoughts on ideas. So if there's anything that kind of sparks you that you would like topics, let me know, because like I say, this stuff really lights me up, and it's always an inquiry. It's always it's like, and having a dialogue in about it is really good, because you'll all have different experiences, different questions, different approaches, and fundamentally the more we merge them and talk and communicate and say, well, what about this? the richer, the more that ball we looked at last week, the more we fill out that ball, and therefore the bigger the picture that we can see becomes. So thank you all very much.